Hi, welcome back to my channel, or a very warm welcome if you're new here. My name is Sophie, and in today's video I'm going to be talking you through everything that I read in February, or rather everything that I didn't read in February because I did fail my TBR. So here is the pile of books that I had planned to read in February. So I had 8 books, but I only read 4 of them. But when I think about it, that's actually still really good because that's half of the TBR that I read. And also the 4 books were pretty decent. I did have 4 4-star reads, so that was good. But I just generally found that February was a bit of a rubbish month for me. So reading wise, I found it very difficult to pick up books. And then when I did, I found that I was reading really slowly. And thinking about it, February last year was equally as bad. So I think it might be more of a February thing than a me thing. But yeah, now it's spring, I'm hoping that I will want to read a little bit more. So let's talk about the books that I did read in February. Up first is a book that actually did kind of result in me reading a lot less. So this is Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë. I spent a lot of time with this book. So I didn't just read it, I also did some research on Emily Brontë, the time she was writing. I spent a lot of time kind of getting to grips with the writing, and I also was annotating this book as well. So I had a really good time reading this one in that way, and I think that's how I'm going to proceed with classics in the future, spending a lot more time with them. If you haven't seen it already, do check out my Wuthering Heights reading vlog if you're interested in this book, because I went into a lot of detail on the history. So it was part reading vlog, part study guide. So you will get a lot of my thoughts about reading this and the experiences I had when I was reading this. This was also a little bit of a strange one because I couldn't remember anything that happened. So it did really feel like I was reading it for the first time, which was also great. So I did end up really enjoying this one again. Despite the horrible characters and all of the horrible things they do, I just think this is really a masterpiece on the Gothic novel, and it's a shame that Emily Brontë only wrote 1 novel, as I would have loved to read more of her novels, but I do need to pick up her poetry. I did hope to do that in February, but yeah, I didn't get around to it, so I hope to do that very soon. I would also really like to pick up more works by the Brontë sisters, so I've read Jane Eyre before, but I'd love to give that one a reread and then also read some of Anne Bronte's work. So I would recommend this one if you're looking for a good gritty Gothic classic to read where the Moors kind of come alive and take on a character of their own. Next up, I have The Merciless Ones by Namina Forna, and this is the 2nd book in an epic fantasy series. I think it's targeted at YA, but I would say this is kind of new adult, so it's a little bit too young to be classed as adult, but there's a lot of traumatic stuff in here, so I think it's a little bit old for YA. So I would class this one as a new adult, and this is a sequel to The Gilded Ones, and this is set in a fantasy world where when women come of age, they have to take part in a bloodletting ceremony, and if their blood runs red, then they get to stay in the village, but if it runs gold, then they are sent away to join other girls called the Alakai, who are impure and are near immortal demons. And we follow the story of Deka, who is our main character, and in her bloodletting ceremony, her blood runs gold and she is sent away to join the Alakai. And this one pretty much continues where the 1st book left off. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to spoil this for you. But yeah, this one explores a lot more of the background of the Alakai, and we do have some more epic battle scenes, and I do think that this one was not as good as the Gilded Ones, but I think it falls into the book 2 trap, where it's kind of bridging between the 1st book and the 3rd book, but I still really enjoyed this, and I would definitely recommend this series if you're looking for a new fantasy series to get into. Then I have Bridgid by Kim Curran, and this kind of tells the story of the Saint Bridgid, who's very popular in Ireland, and she is also very tied to Imbolc, which happens at the beginning of February. And I did really enjoy this one, so it was very interesting to read more about the character Bridgid, as I've heard of her but I don't know much about her, so it was very interesting to see why she's become such a beloved saint in Irish mythology and folklore. So this explores Bridgid's beginnings and how she becomes this saintly figure. And Bridgid is very much trying to live a life of freedom. She doesn't want to be forced to be tied down in a marriage and live a life controlled by men. So she does very early on gain freedom, and she goes across the land trying to free other women and stand up against men. So Bridgid in this novel is very much anti-men, and a lot of her friends and followers do get frustrated with her being so anti-men, and Bridgid does have to accept the fact that she cannot live in a world without men, and that she needs to work together with men, and that not all men are bad. As somebody who is described as a saint, though, she doesn't really seem to be super saintly in some things that she does, but she does inspire love and loyalty from the women around her, and I think that's what really makes her character interesting. And I did really enjoy Kim Curran's writing. I think she has written another book called The Morrigan, which I'd be really interested to pick up. But this one is definitely interesting if you like mythology, although I think people are not really sure if Bridgid was an actual person or if she's a mythological character. But this one does really tell a story that has not been told a lot, so I think this is where it's a really interesting book. And I would definitely recommend it if you are interested in Irish mythology. And the last book that I read is We Call Them Witches by India Rose Bauer, and this is a horror novel, and it's set in a kind of dystopia future where there are monsters called witches, and they are seeking to eliminate humans, and we follow this family of humans who are living on this farm, and we see how they have been living in this world and how they protect themselves from these witches or monsters. And one day they do come across a young girl who is outside of their safety perimeter, so they do take her into their house, and there is an event that happens which causes our main character to leave her home. But this event is in the synopsis, but I feel that that is a little bit of a spoiler because this doesn't happen until about 150 pages in. So I think that's happened a few times recently where I've read a book and one of the main events is in the blurb. So I think people need to be a little bit more careful about what they put in the synopsis so as not to spoil the book. But I did have a really good time with this one, and I did find it really creepy, and there were some really visceral horror moments that happened in this, and especially the last kind of 100 pages there were a lot of twists and turns, a lot of shocks, although I did kind of guess one of the main plot points that happens towards the end of the novel, but I still thought this was a really well written novel, and I loved the way that she ended this. It kind of hints that there could be a sequel. I don't think she is writing a sequel, I think this is a standalone, but there is definitely room for more novels, and I would just love to read more about this world, so I think the world building is really good in this. And I would recommend this if you like horror, but perhaps if you like horror targeted at a younger audience. So that's the 4 books I read in February. Do let me know in the comments what you read in February and if you had any standout books. If you're interested to see what I plan to read in March, then do check out my March TBR here. And also I did haul quite a lot of books in February, so if you're interested to see what new additions I have to my library, then do check this video out here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!